Alright, so today's video is going to focus on abstract sharing. This will be the first video for abstract sharing, but we will do more than one. Alright, the first thing that I tell all of my scholars to do is to first put DMS down on the side of their paper. That stands for divide, multiply, subtract, bring down. Those are the steps for long division, and they do work for abstract sharing as well, although subtract and bring down end up being part of the same step. We also tell scholars that they can remember divide, multiply, subtract, bring down by just remembering dangerous monkeys swing backwards. This is my checklist, and it tells me all of the steps. The next piece that I need to have on my paper is my actual division. So it's going to be 375 divided by 3. Okay, and then on the side here, this strategy starts with this, and I'm only going to model it this one time. Once scholars demonstrate they understand where our division comes from and why it works, we can be done. But this represents the three groups that we're dividing 375 into. Alright, so let's get started. D is for divide, so we're going to start with division, and I'm going to start right here in the hundreds place. I need to think about that as solid hundreds. 3 hundreds divided by 3 is equal to 100. That 100 has a value of 100. So I write it as 100. There's a difference right there between this and long division. Please note that I'm going to be writing their values, not just the digit in the place it belongs. Now this also means that there's now 100 in each of my three groups. So I'm going to record that over here. Division is done. Now I multiply. 100 times 3 is 300. Now we're doing this step because this shows how much we've already shared. Right here, we can see that I've shared 100, 200, 300. So I now need to find out what's left for me to divide into my three equal groups. I've done multiply. Now I subtract. 375 minus 300 equals 75. All right, we're doing good. That's subtract, and that includes bring down. So I'm done with my first round. Now that I've done all four, I cycle right back up to the top, and I get to divide. Now I'm doing the tens. I started with the hundreds, now I'm doing tens, and I have 7 tens. 7 divided by 3 is equal to 2. But because they're tens, it has a value of 20. So I also then write that in each of my groups. Plus 20, plus 20, plus 20. Great, I've done my division. Now let's see how much we used up. 20 times 3 equals 60. And we can see that 20, 40, 60. Okay, multiply is done, now I subtract. This leaves me with 15. Alright, now I have to cycle back. But what we need to remember is that now that I have this 1 here, it's actually going to be thought of as 10 ones. So I have 15 ones. 15 ones divided by 3 is equal to 5. So I record plus 5, plus 5, plus 5. Alright, now let's make sure we're done and we don't have a remainder. 5 times 3 is 15. We've done the division, we just multiplied, now we subtract, and we're left with 0. Now, I will mark this question wrong if scholars leave their answer in expanded form. We should rewrite this as 125 and circle it. In this case, we have an answer line, so I can also write it over here. My point here is really just that we make sure we're not leaving any of these numbers as expanded form. Okay, let's solve another problem. But this time, we're not going to do the column on the side because that's not going to be an expectation that I have scholars do for the remainder of the year. Alright, but just as we did before, we are going to put DMS down. Again, that stands for divide, multiply, subtract, bring down. Those are all of the steps that we're going to follow. Over here, I'm going to write 2,248 divided by 4. Alright, so just as we did before, we start with the largest place value. And I see that it's a 2. That 2 in the thousands place, if we think about it as a solid item, we can't divide it into 4 groups. We need to first regroup it into hundreds. So now instead of dividing 2 thousands, we're going to be dividing 22 hundreds. 22 hundreds divided by 4 is equal to 5 hundreds. I'm going to write that, though, as its value of 500. That's divide. Now we multiply. 500 times 4 is 2,000. Scholars can do that really quickly by doing 5 times 4 equals 20, and then making sure they place the 2 zeros at the end. Multiplied. Now let's subtract. That leaves me with 248 left to divide into my groups. All right, and I've done my subtraction and my bringing down. Now, I'm going to do, instead of doing hundreds, because we just did the hundreds place, I'm now going to think about this as 24 tens. 24 divided by 4 is equal to 6, but because they're tens, it has a value of 60. There's my divide. Multiply. 60 times 4 is equal to 240. There's my multiply. Let's subtract. I'm left with 8. Let's subtract and bring down are one step, so I can check those both off. All right, now let's do our ones. 8 divided by 4 is 2. There's divide. Let's multiply. 2 times 4 is 8. So I'm going to write down 8 here. Multiplied. Let's subtract. Great. And now I know there's no remainder. And again, I cannot leave my quotient in expanded form. So I need to rewrite it here as 562. Or circled over here as 562. There we are. That's how you use the abstract model for division. If you would like, now is a good time to pause the video, give this problem a try here, and then press play, and we'll be going over it. Okay, now that you've had a chance to give this a try, let's go over how to solve the u-try problem. So again, I'm going to write divide, multiply, subtract, bring down on the side of my paper so I remember the steps. And I'm going to now set up my division. So I have 1,145 divided by 5. All right, just as before, I cannot divide 1,000 into 5 equal groups. I need to first change it into hundreds. So now I'm going to be thinking about this as 11 hundreds. 11 hundreds divided by 5 is equal to 2 hundreds, which has a value of 200. Divide. Done. Let's multiply. 200 times 5 is going to be 1,000. Multiplied. Let's subtract. Now I'm left with 145. Okay. Subtract and bring down. Done. Now, because I was dealing with hundreds before, I'm going to be dealing with this as if it were tens. 14 tens divided by 5 is 2 tens, which has a value of 20. There's divide. 20 times 5 is equal to 100. Great. Let's subtract. We're left with 45. Now we're looking at this as 45 ones. 45 ones divided by 5 is equal to 9. Divide. 9 times 5 is 45. Subtract. We're left with 0. There is no remainder. The final answer is 229. And there you go. That's how you do the abstract model for division.